If you take care of the ground, first thing, this meditation becomes effortless. It's like the analogy of the hot air balloon that I really like. This meditation is about getting lighter and getting up. And if you have a lot of weights on you, you can't go up. No matter how much hot air you put in your balloon, it's not gonna go up. You have to let go of your little sandbags first, and then it's gonna go.
I'm leaving home for the coastline, someplace under the sun. I feel my heart for the first time.
Tonight will be a full-fledged Mettā practice exposition, so that you are fully squared and covered in the practice of Mettā, so that you know all the different ways, the different levels that we can practice this method, this loving kindness. Starting from, it will be divided in 3 main sections. So basically the bulker sensations, the coarser emotions, how to deal with that, how to deal with hurt when it comes up and forgive it, and also hold it in a loving space. And then we will explore a little bit the Mettā through the jhanas, the jhana factors. So different qualities that increasingly release the mind, and also the Mettā changes throughout that. And the last one will be the limit, basically. Where does Mettā end? Because this is very important to know for us. This is day 4, and everybody is doing very good. I'm quite happy with everybody's practice, actually. And I feel like this is a really good time to speak about this, because now the meditation will change for a lot of us here, starting from tomorrow on. There might be new meditation instructions. The meditation practice will start to be a little bit more released and free and liberated, and we will go deeper into the mind. But there is always the beginning to things. And in this meditation practice, what is wonderful, what is amazing, is that we cannot hide things anymore. We cannot pretend that things that are there inside of us are not there. We can't cover them any longer, because the Mettā is about being fully open. And so when you're fully open, you can't hide these things anymore, and they will come up. And it is actually the most useful part, perhaps, for when actually you will go back home and go back to your life. And however deep you go in this meditation practice, forgiveness, which is also part of Mettā and Karuna, compassion practice, is probably one of the most useful tools that you will be able to use in your life. So whatever happens to you, whatever hurt, whatever unpleasant people you meet, there's a lot out there. And you'll have to deal with them. It's not because you came to paradise for 10 days that you practice loving kindness and you're floating around and like a deva, like just going from the dhanasala to your like kuti and just like Then when you go out of here, like we recite in the morning, all conditions come to an end at some point, and you'll have to leave this place and go back and meet all kinds of people, very nice people, also not so nice people. And so, My first question is, has anybody here been ever betrayed? Yes. Lied to. Wait, I'll raise my hand again. Betrayed. Have you ever been betrayed? Somebody kind of did something behind your back or like used you or manipulated you or lied to you or all of the above at the same time. Or said something they would say they would do and then they didn't do it. Yes, other people. Mm-hmm. How does that feel? Feels terrible, right? It feels hurtful, maybe to say the least. And what do we usually want to do? Yeah, am I right? A little bit, at least. No. As far away from me as you can be. Don't want you in my life anymore. And I mean, that's not a bad thing, but the thing is that this push is actually, often we keep it on in the background, like this. And we forget it's there. And then we keep on with life. We grow another arm, like this. And then we start doing things again, but still we have that arm that's like pushing that thing away behind us. And so, in my own path also, this forgiveness practice has been huge. It's been tremendous because it also is about this kind of developing this detachment and having, you don't have to be best friends with those people again, but actually you don't have to carry it within you. And these things you will come upon these things in life, and that is for sure. But the thing is how are we going to deal with them? Through all these hard times, and I've gone through a lot of it, I've definitely come to realize that these hard times and these challenges, they are here to actually teach us and show us the way to grow. And they're actually an amazing opportunity for us to get even better, even stronger in the Dhamma, in wholesome states. And so it's for us to choose, basically. I used to blame my parents for a lot of things and, all the things that happened to me. And then at some point I realized that, well, actually, that's not doing anything. That's not doing anything good. And I started taking all the blames of everything that I did. Actually, I started to take it on me. I started to say, even if it wasn't my fault, I said, no, it's actually my fault. It's my own karma. And I'm the one that has to deal with this. And when I started seeing life in that way, everything really changed because I regained my power to actually change my own life. And that's, maybe I'll get there on this retreat, but this is the analogy of the composting toilet that I really like. I used to live on the patch of land. I used to have 25 acres of forested land in eastern Canada. And I built my own eco tiny house on it by myself. And it was completely off-grid. And I had a composting toilet. And any good gardener knows that the more compost you have, the better your garden will be. So that's become my philosophy. So when you get some hard times coming at you, well, when you're smart and you're wise, you know how to turn that into really good, fertile compost for fuel for the path. Bunny was saying, when life brings you lemons, make lemonade.
No mud, no lotus, they say.
Huh?
They often say no mud, no lotus.
No mud, no lotus. Yeah, that's another really amazing. Yeah. So you get the gist of it. I think these things, when we start to see the right perspective, the right view on it, then we can actually start to really use everything that happens to us to propel us forward. We think that forgiveness is, a lot of the times when we tell people, would you like to do some forgiveness meditation? They're like, no, because it's not pleasant. Of course it's not fun. You just want to be floating with loving kindness instead. Forgiveness sounds heavy and painful and difficult. But this is where a lot of the power lies. And if you take care of the ground, first thing, this meditation becomes effortless. It's like the analogy of the hot air balloon that I really like. This meditation is about getting lighter and getting up. And if you have a lot of weights on you, you can't go up. No matter how much hot air you put in your balloon, it's not gonna go up. You have to let go of your little sandbags first, and then it's gonna go. This is very close to loving kindness, and the sutta I'll be reading from is the simile of the saw, the analogy of the saw, the Kakachupama Sutta. And I'll only read a part of it. It's a long sutta, but I'll go just right at the core of it. And this is the advice that the Buddha gives when somebody says something not so pleasant to you, but that's not only by speech, it can be anything unpleasant that comes your way. And this is how we should cultivate our minds with that loving kindness. There are these 5 possible manners of speech that others could say to you. Their speech could be timely or untimely, true or false, soft or harsh, bent on goodness or bent on harm, with a loving mind or with inner hate. If others should speak to you in any of these ways, at that time you should train in this way. Our minds will be unshaken, and I will not retaliate with hurtful words. We will dwell with a heart full of love, caring for their well-being, not obsessed by anger. We will dwell suffusing that person with a heart filled with love. And with this as a support, we will dwell suffusing the all-encompassing universe with a heart filled with love, vast, expanded, boundless, without anger or resentment. This is how you should train monks. Just as if a person would arrive with a shovel and a basket and say, I shall take away the earth from this great big earth. He would dig some soil here and there. He would scatter some soil here and there. He would spit here and there. He would urinate here and there, saying, be without earth, be without earth. What do you think, monks? Could that person take away the earth from that great big earth? No. Wise. Why? Now you're supposed to say this, but since you don't know the sutta yet. Because, Bhante, this great big earth is deep and immeasurable. It is not possible to take away its earth. That person could only reap misery and disappointment. Well, if others should speak to you in any of these ways, you should train in this way. Our minds will be unshaken, and we will not retaliate with hurtful words. We will dwell with a heart full of love, caring for their well-being, not obsessed by anger. we will dwell suffusing that person with a heart full of love. And with this as a support, we will dwell suffusing the all-encompassing universe with a heart like the earth. Vast, expanded, boundless, without anger or resentment. This is how you should train monks. And so this simile of the earth is just, when you really have the Mettā, when you really have this determination to only practice this, nobody can get to you. Nobody can actually, it's a protection. It's like, how could they actually get to you? How could they take away the earth from the earth? And this is such a beautiful way of, thinking of your Mettā, basically, your Mettā practice. Just as if a person were to come with a blazing grass torch and would say, "With my blazing grass torch, I shall burn away and dry up the river Ganges," the Ganga river in India. What do you think, monks? Could that person burn away and dry up the river Ganges with a blazing grass torch? No, Bhante. Why? Because, Bhante, the river Ganges is deep and immeasurable. It is not possible to burn it away with or dry it up with a blazing grass torch. That person could only reap misery and disappointment. Therefore, you should train, our minds will be unshaken and we will not retaliate with hurtful words. We will dwell with a heart filled with love, caring for their well-being, not obsessed by anger. And we will dwell suffusing that person with a heart filled with love. And with this as a support, we will dwell suffusing the all-encompassing universe with a heart like the river Ganges. Vast, expanded, boundless, without anger and resentment. This is how you should train monks. Isn't that a beautiful recollection when a little something unpleasant comes to you and you just basically wash it away with the river of your love. And here's the nail. Monks, even if brigands or spies were to come and sever you limb after limb with a two-handed saw, at that time, he who would harbor a hateful mind would not be practicing my teaching. At that time, you should train in this way. Our minds will be unshaken, and I will not retaliate with hurtful words. We will dwell with a heart full of love, caring for their well-being, not obsessed by anger. We will dwell suffusing that person with a heart filled with love. And with this as a support, we will dwell suffusing the all-encompassing universe with a heart filled with love, vast, expanded, boundless, without anger or resentment. This is how you should train monks. Monks, you should frequently call to mind this analogy of the saw. Seeing in such a way, monks, developing this perspective all the time. Could there be any manner of speech or actions, subtle or rough, that you could not endure? No, Bhante. Then frequently call to mind the analogy of the saw. This will be for your welfare and happiness for a very long time. Another recollection that I like is remembering that all beings without exception, this is a universal law, all beings want to be happy. All beings want to be happy, and whatever they do is they're trying to find happiness somehow. And that really helped me on my own path, and that's not from a discourse or anything, but that really helped me in my own path to actually let go, to actually forgive people. Because we all try to be happy. Sometimes people are not really good at it, but and they hurt other people, like you, like me. And they say things and they do things that are not very wholesome. But you can also see how in their own way they are trying to find happiness. And remember, now you have the wisdom of the Buddha about wholesome states and unwholesome states. We spent 3 days talking about this. And you can see that these unwholesome states, that they give rise within them to actually attack you or to bring you down or to say things and do things that are really hurtful and detrimental. They are actually hurting themselves a lot just doing that. And when you understand this, when you have that wisdom, it's a lot easier also to let it go. The Buddha, in a discourse, explained all the things that you could do when somebody acts in such a way with you, in a very unwholesome way. And at first he says, first you try to send them loving kindness, and you really try to, be friendly with them and loving and kind. And then if it doesn't work and if they keep doing it, you can try compassion. And then be like, oh, poor them. They're actually really suffering. That's unfortunate. And have compassion for them. Because people doing that are actually usually suffering within them. And then he says, well, if they keep going, then you can remain equanimous. And that's a really good trick when things go a little too far off the edge. And then it really, really triggers you, and you just don't, it's so wild, you don't know how to react to the thing. And you just be like, okay, I'm gonna check out. I'm just gonna let that be. And I'm just not gonna reply anything. I'm just gonna be equanimous. I'm just gonna be like a beautiful mirror and not say anything and not engage. Then he says, yes, because it gets worse sometimes. Then he says, you can remember that every being is the owner of their own karma. They are coming from their own karma. They are tied to their own karma. And whatever karma that they perform, this they will fall the heir to. So later they will reap the karma of these actions. We call that, in Pali, we call that kamma vipaka. Kamma vipaka is basically action and result. And so in the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha taught the law of karma and vipaka, that actions have results. So it's not just you can do anything in life and it doesn't matter, there's no consequence, it's not nihilistic. It's actually when we perform wholesome actions, then wholesome results come to us. Might not be immediately, but every situation has its potency. Some karma will be immediate. Sometimes this is a new kind of it's a new Buddhist kind of trend, like instant karma. Like somebody says something nasty to someone and they just like bang their head on something, or some says like, instant karma. So there's some karma that seems to ripen right away, but some karma usually takes a while, and it will only come up when the right causes and conditions come. Like, for example, with wise people, sometimes somebody that is not so wise will say something really inappropriate. And then, because sometimes people don't understand that everything is connected, and that when you say something, especially within your own circle, that is really hurtful, that's actually hurting you in return in a lot of ways. So when you bring down other people, for example, if I bring down the monks, if I bring down a monk, and if I say like, oh, this monk, or like this is not good, he's not performing well, then this is just basically giving the idea to everybody that monks behave like that, and I'm a monk. So it comes back to us. So these things, we have to be careful when we say nasty things about other people and things like that. It actually really easily comes back to us. And so we never know when it's going to come back to us, but at some point a situation will arise and it said, oh, but didn't you say that last time? And then it kind of actually keeps them out of a really good opportunity, because out of anger they said something and they just kind of made a wall, and then they've barred themselves away from a certain situation, and then later that situation arises again. They would like to have that happen again, but now they're barred away because of their previous reaction. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it's exactly like that, but sometimes it does happen. Yeah. Actually, it's a really good reflection. It's like, actually, have I done this to somebody else in the past? That's always my first kind of reflection. Is like, actually, I've lied to somebody, at some point before I took on the virtues, for example. And it cannot be just a lie, but it can also be like just untruthful speech, or just like really lousy kind of truthfulness or untruthfulness. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've really done it, because karma, like the Buddha said, you cannot understand all of the inner workings of karma. It's impossible. But you can tell it's there. That's enough for us to understand, because you just go mad, you just go crazy trying to understand all the karmic connections of everything. You just can't. It's just too much. And that brings me to my next topic, which is actually more meant to be inclusive. I'd like to hear people in the audience. feels funny to say that, in the group. So what do you think is the difference between love or loving kindness, metta, and compassion? Because these things are really, really interesting to know. And you can take a moment. That's beautiful. You love them, but you also want to protect them. That's compassion. Yeah, good, really good. Yes, empathy. Yes. Empathy, yes. So you feel the emotion, but you don't suffer with the person. You actually, empathy, yes. Sorry, I misheard before. You said, very good. Actually, that lands very close to what I wrote down. I'd like to maybe hear, yes, Bhante. Like sympathetic, sympathy. Wonderful examples. Maybe I should repeat that for everybody. So metta is like the sun, the noon sun, high noon sun, which is just like, love, universal love for all living beings, all the time, unconditioned. And compassion is more like a sunset, where the sun goes down in the darkness to bring some light and brings all the beautiful colors at the same time. And mudita would be more like a sunrise, more like welling up of joy for whatever particular, it's kind of a glorious another word for that is anumodana, like rejoicing in mudita, anumodana. And then upekkha would be like the full moon, very, not as bright, but still shining and still very clear and crisp. But it's a cool light. Good. Anybody else? Okay, good. Well, that falls somewhat close to what I wrote as love being like the sun, like a one-way, just like unconditioned, just like a blast of just, straightforward, very almost like a very masculine kind of energy of like going out, like I love you, everybody. And compassion has this tinge of hurt in it that I find is like love is also witnessing the hurt at somewhere in somebody else or in oneself, basically. It's the difference is that there is love and that there is that energy that welcomes and cares, but there's also this component of hurt. Because compassion, if everything is going well, is there need for compassion? Can compassion be there if, like we're all streaming devas and we're all floating in space and it's like, so everything is going well, there's no problem, so there's no real need for like compassion. Oh, that deva's radiance is a little bit fainter, I have compassion for them. I don't know. So for me, in my own reflection, that was like the difference, the tonal difference between loving kindness, which is just like putting out love, and then compassion, which is more like, here, there's hurt and it needs to be seen and welcomed and held and protected. It's beautiful. And the other word that I like for compassion is actually anukampa, which is the second word that we can translate as compassion. And anukampa is really close to, the semantic root is basically kampa, and kampa is like trembling, so resonating, so empathy is that same thing. So that's very good. We all agree. Yeah. I guess we can play with these terms semantically because it all kind of depends. Like if you're empathetic, it can also be a very positive thing, but it's a matter of like staying detached basically from. It's not like actually taking it on, but it's. I like that word anukampa, which is like you're resonating with them. You're feeling what they're feeling, but you're actually able to hold space for them, like be a pillar. And that's really helpful because then they feel like you know what they're experiencing, but you're not brought down by it. And that's kind of like leading by example. Anyways, for me, but I definitely do agree with also.
Yeah, I think it's just the way that some people define empathy is different.
Yes, of course.
That's Bhante used to always say that compassion is allowing the space for other people to suffer.
Yes. Compassion is allowing the space for other people to suffer. Yeah. I mean, there's a way that could sound terrible, but but I know what you mean, Venerable. Yes, of course. I mean, if we take it to that level, I actually, so basically, Gnanadeepa Bhante said something in the lines that Sudhira Bhante was saying, that the key thing about compassion is understanding suffering or dukkha, because when you understand, the more you understand dukkha and the more you understand it thoroughly through all of existence, then the more you will have compassion for all beings. I actually gave a whole talk on that very topic, wisdom and compassion, because it's such a common talk, especially in Mahayana, I think. Wisdom and compassion, they're very big topics of Mahayana. And I actually basically was saying exactly this. When you develop wisdom and discernment of the Buddha, more and more, what you feel for people is just compassion, because you see them reacting with anger, taking things personal, like doing selfish actions, and you see that they're actually they're hurting themselves and they're trying to find happiness. And even if for some people that think that they might be doing well, and they might be doing well, but they're, like you were saying, there might be an element of still they're kind of stuck in, if they haven't understood the whole teaching, then they're not fully liberated from selfishness, for example, or all the fetters, basically. Now we've explored loving kindness and compassion. We've had really beautiful ideas. And now I'd like to maybe throw the new question, and what would be the difference between compassion and forgiveness? That's the other one that's kind of pretty interesting. You can take some time. Yes, very good. I wrote, it's almost word for word what I wrote. Forgiveness is more something personal, you said, because you wouldn't forgive somebody else for hurting somebody else. It has to be connected to you. It's something hurtful that you've actually experienced that needs to be let go of. Yes, compassion that's the thing, is like it feels like compassion is a bit of a broader term, which would encompass a bigger semantic field, where you could have this happen to yourself and then feel compassion for yourself, and then also for others, somebody's hurting or going through a hard time, and then you feel compassion for them. Whereas forgiveness would be pretty much only personal. Like it has to be connected to you in some way, because it's that process of, otherwise forgiveness is, and I mean, even if one person hurts another person and you're really angry at that person for hurting that person, which is your friend, it's kind of personal anyways, so because you're taking it personal. So I found just another quality in that kind of spectrum of forgiveness that also kind of seemed to kind of stand out, which there was the personal, it has to be kind of connected to you. But then it seems like compassion and forgiveness have another thing that differentiate themselves. Letting go, exactly, spot on. Yeah, because the compassion is more like this holding space for someone and holding goodwill, holding that space. Whereas forgiveness is really something that needs to be given up. It needs to be dropped. It needs to be let go of, released, like the little sandbags on the hot air balloon. So, very good. And so ultimately, this forgiveness practice is about getting lighter, because this practice requires us to have a light mind, and to go up we cannot bring a whole bunch of rocks. And also forgiveness is about developing a certain level of mental equanimity, mental balance, to be okay with these things. I call them the monsters in the basement, basically. Every time we have something like a crazy situation happening to us, we kind of like open the basement door and like whack it there and close the door shut. And when we do that for a long time, then it starts to get groundy it starts to groan in the basement, and we're getting more and more agitated because we know what's underlying and we know everything that's down there, and we don't want to look at it. And then we just peek in and we invite them for tea. One after the other, slowly, slowly. And then we show them the other door, the entrance door, or the exit door, basically. We don't keep them in the basement. We welcome them with kindness, say, hey, I know you. Thank you for being here and teaching me that I threw you in the closet for 10 years, and now I can show you the other way out from my house. And when we do this, also this applies when we encounter people that are acting really unwholesomely. When forgiveness practice becomes very integrated, it's kind of like a Teflon pan, basically, that you get something on it and it just drops. It doesn't stick. It doesn't stay on you because you've trained your mind so much. You know, and it's part of your wisdom. It's like, I don't want this. Do I need this? I don't need this. Do I want this? I don't want this. I let it go. I forgive you for acting the way you are. And we start to have a very, basically, mental balance starts to be very strong throughout our life, just because we're not actually taking up these things. Like the Buddha said to that person who came to him and said, shouted him names and treated him like very, very poorly, and he said, why you're not reacting? It's like, well, it's like somebody comes to you and brings you gifts you don't want. What do you keep the gifts or you give them back? It's like, yeah, you give them back. Yeah, I don't want your gift. I don't want your gifts. She said, oh, you can take them away. Now we've kind of touched on the heavier, the coarser, and when all of these things are dealt with, the conduit is more open. This practice just takes off by itself. It's really easy to feel loving kindness when we're actually light and happy, and we don't have these things. For me, I really think that does everybody knows the Sufi poet Rumi? So there's this stanza that he says, it's not about just feeling and experiencing, cultivating love, but to remove all the barriers you've made around it for it to grow. And when we keep these heavy emotions in ourselves, these are barriers basically impeding us. And when you let them go, the rest just happens. So I wasn't sure how long this was going to take. We're already quite far in, so I'll keep it light. And I just want to touch lightly on a few aspects, basically, that are very important for your direct practice on this retreat. And because I feel like we're at this intersection now, day 4 is usually that day where mental joy and mental energy is picked up, and people are much calmer and are dealing with much more core states within their minds. And so that's really an important place. And I want to just underline the fact that the Mettā practice is really like a hot air balloon. So basically at the beginning it's flat and it's laying on the ground. And we need to just fill it up with a lot of hot air. And that takes a while because it's empty, and it needs that joy, it needs that lightness, it needs that continuous care and attention and love and joy. And then at some point it starts to stand up and it starts to kind of hold itself up. And then that's kind of like filling up the joy, filling up. At the beginning, there's a lot of joy. It's a lot stronger. But then once we kind of release the little sandbags and we're not really heavy anymore, we're getting light, then we only need a few little bits of joy. The joy gets a lot lesser. So in the first jhana, for those of you who remember, who listened when I was talking in the past talk, the first jhana is marked, and the second jhanas are marked by a lot of joy, stronger joy. And that's normal and that's needed. It's not that we should be controlling that or like stopping it. It's like at the beginning, yeah, let it grow, let it grow, let it grow. And we fill up the hot air balloon. And then at some point, there is joy in the mind. The mind is just buoyant, it's happy, it's uplifted. So it only needs a little bit. We don't need that much, and we just can go for a long time, just floating on a little bit of joy, because the mind is already buoyant. And what happens then is that the Mettā also calms down. So when you feel that the joy has filled your heart and your mind, don't try to bring up the hard, intense, loving kindness feeling again. It's meant to calm down. It's okay. It's all good. And you're meant to actually go much further, with just a little bit of joy. Because that's the nature of a wholesome mind that's been trained for a few days on a retreat specifically. You will find that you only need just a Buddha smile, just a light love, and that's even actually better. That's even better, and it's easier to sustain. And at some point, the mind will become very collected here. The mind will become unified quite a lot. And it's about learning to rest here. Rest the mind, so you'll feel the love. It's gonna calm down. There's still gonna be joy, but it's gonna be calm joy. It's gonna be tranquil, just floating. And then the mind will be collected. And at some point, one of the things that we look for is that you might start to lose interest in bodily awareness. And so you might start to feel like some parts of your body seem to kind of like disappear. You're not disappearing, don't worry. You're just losing interest in the body, because the body is a lot coarser. There's a lot of stuff going on in the body, and when the mind really calms down, it doesn't really care so much. It doesn't want to know all of the things in the body and just be really invaded by all these sensations. It just wants to be really joyful and happy and just there, more and more collected. And at some point, the body will kind of seem like it's really in the background. It's really kind of, it's there. If something lands on you, you can feel it. If wind blows, you can feel it. You can hear sounds, but you're not actually paying attention to it. It doesn't shake your mind anymore. It doesn't make your mind waver. And so your mind is very collected, and the body seems to kind of fade away. It calms down. And you might feel like the Mettā moves up into the head, and that's really normal. And when it kind of moves up, or when you feel like your awareness is mainly from here on, you might feel like an expansion, a feeling of expansion also. That is completely normal. Don't try to go back down in the heart. Stay there and continue being like the sun and shining out this beautiful love, this very light love from your head. Don't think about it too much. It's really simple, it's really calm, and it's completely normal. I just wanted to touch upon this so that everybody knows that if that happens to you, you're on the right track. And so don't try to go back down in your heart and try to really feel like blasting loving kindness. Yes, but see, you will start to calm that down. You will start to relax it. Because sometimes the mind, it's kind of active, and it's habituated to be active a little bit, and all mental activities come with tension. And so at the beginning, it is very frequent. People will feel tightness, yes. And just calm down. Just calm down. It's all good. Yeah. Whether that's that or not, still these are sensations, and they should just be relaxed. They should just be kind of, and if it's there, if it stays there, don't try to change it, but just like relax around it. Just try to release, relax. Well, for me, it happened at first when I was first doing this, and I just know I just resonate with that because it was kind of, and a lot of people also experience this, where when the metta moves up, it feels a little tight because the mind is still quite active. So it might take a little bit of time. You might have, try to be comfortable in your posture. Try not to sit in a really kind of rigid way, or because that could be triggering that. Then it's been a somewhat active morning, so sometimes that doesn't help. That helps for the joy, but if you go deeper in the meditation, then the mind is more active. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming days, as it calms down, it will also calm down. If it's like you stand up, you walk around and it's still there, it's always there, just maybe try laying down a little bit. For me, that works a lot. It just changes the whole patterns of tension in my body. And then it actually seems to be able to release and relax. And then when I stand up after maybe a half an hour or so, it's gone. So, yes. I'd like to maybe wrap this up and talk about the limit where this is going, because I said I would, and so I don't want to be lying. So basically we started with the forgiveness, the coarser emotions, and then we went through a little bit quickly with the simile of the hot air balloon, through basically the stages of metta. And actually metta changes. Loving kindness changes and it calms down, and that's normal. And then your body disappears. And then you're thinking, this monk is crazy. And then through these stages, so that you know what you're experiencing, and that's really important. And then to know the limit also, that's the third step I mentioned before I started. So the limit of loving kindness, and which is understood in another discourse that the Buddha gave, is basically the fourth jhana, the fourth level of meditation, which is that culmination where in between the fourth level of meditation and the first formless base, where mind starts to detach from the body, the body kind of disappears, and it's only mental collectedness, and there is a vast expansive feeling. This is where the metta will really change. Metta is too strong to go beyond this, because this state is very subtle. So what happens here is that it's going to be a much, much more detached kind of loving kindness. It's going to be very, very calm, and it has more like bliss or like light joy in it. More and more, it's getting simpler and simpler. So that's the limit. And so don't worry, at some point the metta will really change, and it will move up into the head, and then it will really calm down to the point where it's just a light joy, basically, very light joy, simple. When that happens, tell me on interview, and then we'll talk. Your meditation instructions will change, and I'll give you a little exercise. It's gonna be fun. And so that's it. That's it for me tonight. Is there any questions? Yes. So should we just work with anything that comes up in the mind and then let it go because it's about letting go? Or should we try to maintain that feeling a little bit more? Well, so that's the trick. And forgiveness is actually more active. So that's why we say, you don't have to sit as long. You can do a lot more walking, actually, is really good for forgiveness. And it doesn't go nearly as deep in the meditation, but it just really deals with more intense things. Ideally, what you want to be doing is, what one wants to be doing is that there is a person, a situation, they arise in the mind, and you feel the hurt, and you say, I forgive you for not understanding. I forgive you for causing me pain. And you feel that feeling, and you allow it to be there, to be seen, because that's the crux of it. That's all that's happening inside is like it's coming up and it needs to be seen. There's hurt. And then you basically stay with that feeling, that situation, for as long as it is needed. If you feel like the forgiveness hasn't finished and mind comes up with another thing, don't pick up the other thing. Just stay with the main one. And then slowly, it's like basically pouring water on like a block of sugar or something. It's just gonna like slowly, for as long as there is the need to forgive, you will know when you're done with something. It just feels kind of dry. It just feels forced. And it feels like, yeah, like I'm done. We're not best friends, but I'm okay with you being. And that's enough. And then you can change. One can change whatever arises. If something arose before and you saw it and then you were still working with the other one, then stay with the other one, and then when that's finished, then you can pick that one up. Or you can just wait until it arises again. Forgiveness is not a hard line of a practice. I mean, if it's actually working and you're feeling forgiveness and there's a few things arising, well, it's okay. Don't. Usually you try to stay with one for as long as it's needed. Then whatever arises, when that's done, you can change. But if you also feel like it's a bundle, that's also possible. So I would say deal with the bundle, and yeah, good. So we can share our merits, and then we'll just go our merry way. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share these merits that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty powers, share these merits of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
I'm leaving home for the coastline, someplace under the sun. I feel my heart for the first time, 'cause now I'm moving on, yeah, I'm moving on.